Thank you for being here today. I like starting on time. It's 12 noon. This is when we called this press conference. I got some housekeeping to do here with the members, and thank you for the press for being here today on such short notice. On what we're going to be doing is talking today about COVID responses that we got going out there. But before I get going on that, this has been I've been in the legislature for 20 years, and I've never ran across an issue where I've not been able to make a decision almost like that, especially as the facts come in. Now, one of the interesting parts about this is the facts, I call them variables, change on a daily basis. It makes it very difficult to be able to manage that. But there are some things that have been managed well and are going to be managed well into the future. So we're going to talk about some of those. But first of all, there's only a few people standing behind me here. We have interim meetings going on right now, and so they're taking their priorities and being at their interim meetings and doing their job. But I want to thank this caucus, the Republican caucus on the Senate and the governor's office and the House of Delegates, because we're all trying to find a path forward to be able to take care of the people in West Virginia at this time of crisis. Now, with that said, we've been working on legislation that we can actually get through both chambers. And at this point in time, we do not have the ability to call ourselves in. And it takes 2/3 to be able to, actually it's 3/5, to get in. So that's 21 members in the Senate, 60 members in the House. And everything I've seen so far, we have not been able to get that. And keep in mind, our caucuses are made up of all walks of life. And so there's a lot of different perspectives come in. But one of the things that we've actually been able to do, and there's been a lot of communication between the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. One of the things, we all know the hospital, the ICUs, they're all getting filled up. And with collaboration from the Senate, the House, and the governor's office, there's a task force that's been formed that will make it so that if you test positive for COVID, that you could be eligible to get the infusion therapy and the steroid treatment that takes and reduces it by 2/3 your likelihood of ending up in the hospital. And so that is going, we're hoping that when this gets implemented here within days, that this will reduce the flow into the hospitals by 2/3. One of my greatest concerns is that when the hospitals are overloaded, we have automobile accidents. And when you've got people laying in the emergency rooms because they can't get a bed, then that becomes a problem. Same way for other diseases and things like that. Heart attacks is another example. We want to be able to keep care of them. This infusion therapy has been shown to work and cut down those numbers. So in a matter of 10 days from the time we get this out there, and you don't have to go to the hospital, you don't have to go to the doctor, and we're getting this done, we will see a decrease in the number of beds that's being utilized for COVID, for the long term in the ICUs. That's a big deal, ladies and gentlemen. So anybody that thinks the legislature and the governor's office is not doing their job, that's false. We are actually out here looking at all the avenues. So that leads me to the next thing. And I spoke about variables earlier. One of the variables that we've got that I've just about had my fill of, and I think most of us have, is the federal government. The federal government changing the game, changing the rules almost on a daily basis, using federal dollars to coerce outcomes that they want from Washington, D.C. The last time I checked, the federal government exists solely because of the state's desire to have a unified representation and being able to work together. It is not the opposite direction. With that said, I'm calling on Patrick Morrissey, our AG, to take and utilize every means possible, as well as our governor, to push back on the federal government and say, no, you're overstepping your bounds. This is important, because if we don't do this now, we will have allowed precedents to be set way into the future on many, many other issues. And that's another thing about this. We're in a fish tank, every one of us right now, with COVID, trying to be able to manage it. I can assure you that the members here, and the members on the other side of the building, and the governor's office are all going to be looking at long-term solutions for something that we have not dealt with in over 100 years. But the federal government has went way too far in putting these mandates out, and if it's not a mandate, then they're using federal dollars to coerce, again, government entities and the healthcare industry, and now it's bleeding out into the private sector, private businesses. Right now at 100 employees or more. Businesses have the same freedoms to make decisions that they need to make as individuals in this state have the same freedoms for what they do with their own health care and their family's health care. I have one more thing that I'll applaud the governor for his decision to make it so that elected bodies in the counties, where it's a county commission or the boards of education, to make the decisions on the local levels. This makes absolute sense to do that. You can have a county that has virtually no cases, and you can have a county that is in the red zone. Allow those autonomies to be able to take place, and those elected officials, not non-elected, but elected officials, making those decisions. They're the only ones that should ever be doing that. I want to stress again, and this is probably the most important part, in our caucus, in our chamber, there are diverse opinions, no more, just like there are diverse occupations where we come from in the private sector to be able to represent the people of West Virginia. And I don't think I've ever been more proud of the people that I work with in this chamber behind me, with their ability to sit down, not scream at each other, but to talk out the issues, to find a path forward that where we can do the best thing for the people of West Virginia, to give them the guidance forward. And we're working on that, and we'll continue to work on that. Over the next couple of weeks, if we can come together with a piece of legislation, we will ask the governor to put it on the call while we're doing redistricting. And by the way, if the federal government did such a great job, we wouldn't be getting our numbers for redistricting on October the 16th or September the 30th to be able to do this job. They're 6 months behind right now. And so they think they can do a great job in coming in here and telling us how to manage COVID. Nonsense. I've had enough of President Biden overreach. The only thing he's going to do is make a bunch of lawyers rich, because this is going to go to court on many levels, because it's an overreach. We, as in this state and every other state out there, have the right and the freedom as well to determine our own destinies. With that said, I'm going to stop and let members talk and share with you their perspectives, however they choose on this. And I'm going to add one last thing. And I've received thousands of emails, and they all treat me like I'm running a dictatorship, and that I should be able to tell these good folks behind me how to vote. I don't think of one of them will sit there and tell you that I've ever told anybody how to vote. That's not how this process is supposed to work. You build alliances and you take everybody's thoughts and you try to weave them in to being the most appropriate thing that we can do. This group behind me does just that. And I am nothing but a facilitator of their will, along with a little bit of me put in there. But that's the way it works. So when there's people out here sending these emails telling me that I've got to tell them what to do, it's false, it's inaccurate, and it is not good government when that happens. That's what's gotten West Virginia to where it's been for the last 60 to 70 years. Have at it, gentlemen.
My name's Eric Tarr. Agree with everything the President just said. The senators here, myself, have been inundated with emails, phone calls, and those things over citizens who are very concerned over the mandates that are possible within the state from businesses applying those mandates, and even more so since whoever the puppets are behind President Biden have told him to do this to kind of distract from what he did in Afghanistan, to the potential harm of a lot of West Virginians. We have been, as a group, negotiating this where a position could be for one within the Senate for a good while now. It's not been a couple days, it's been weeks upon weeks on where we should be with regards to any vaccine that comes out and what laws and regulations should be around that vaccine. In addition to those negotiations going on here, those negotiations have been happening in the House and between these bodies and the governor's office. Those negotiations are at times fragile because they're on the cusps of being able to get something done, and sometimes it steps back away from it. And in that light, we have been trying to keep these negotiations as going forward as much as possible. And like the President said, I'm very, very proud of the caucus that we have here. It has been very respectful, although very very contested at times, with a lot of heat in that when it is being contested. But it's not stopped us. We've not stepped away, threw our hands in the air. As it changes day by day, it changes that negotiation. So to those citizens who have been reaching out to us, we hear you. And many of us are arguing and really debating it and at times screaming as loud as you are at us to get action done toward your safety and your freedom. Your freedom. And so I will also thank the people who are behind me for those efforts and in continue these negotiations. So.
Anybody else want to take a crack?
Senator Roland Roberts, and I echo the sentiments of the Senate President today. It is very important for us to manage this situation in a way that we can help the state of West Virginia have as much freedom as possible. We've all received hundreds and hundreds of emails saying, call a special session. We share that sentiment if a special session had the wherewithal to solve the problems. If we can get those problems addressed, then we have to do the work behind the scenes, as this Senate has done, and proposed a bill and a way to give relief and find balance for the businesses as well as individuals in West Virginia, dealing with mandates and vaccination passports, those types of things. It's going to, the negotiations are ongoing as of right up to this moment, but it is right for us to let the general public know that we are working hard, we are doing what we can, but you cannot oversimplify a very complicated situation. And that's what some people tend to be doing. And we have, of course, we're dealing with the federal situation, with President Biden complicating everything and confusing everything. And that's creating some frustration on our part, and I know it's causing problems across the country because of what we're trying to do to help our state and help our people. And so we certainly solicit the prayers of West Virginians on behalf of trying to find some real solutions to the difficulties that we're facing right now. Thank you.
So, Senator Tom Takubo of Kanawha County, as many of you guys know, I'm also a practicing pulmonary critical care physician, taking care of many of these patients. You know, there's a lot of diverse opinions behind me, just as they are in your own homes, in your own households, in your own workplace. This is a tough issue. And yesterday I was on the governor's briefing, and obviously I'm a strong advocate. I think as many people as possible should get vaccinated. I believe the vaccinations are working and they're saving lives. But I'm also a firm believer that people should have the choice for themselves what they should and should not do. And I also believe that we as government, whether on the state level or the federal level, should not be stepping into private businesses and telling them what they should or should not do. That's not for us to decide. Just as it's not for us to decide on an individual's level what they should or should not do. And so I certainly hope I'm not sending any mixed messages, but I want to make it clear where I'm at. I know others don't share my same views, and that's okay too. That's what this is all about. We're a diverse people, and everybody has the right to make decisions for themselves. But what's happening right now with people asking for a special session, they're asking government to step in and tell private businesses what they cannot do. The federal government's stepping in and telling private businesses what they have to do, and I think both of those views are wrong. Private businesses need to make decisions for themselves. Hopefully they do it on a science-based principle, and they look at the good of their communities, but that gets into a different topic. But this team's working well together. They're looking at everybody's concerns. I'm sorry, probably none of us are able to get back to every single email, every single call, but they are being seen, they are being heard. We're taking them to heart, and it's just a very complex issue that we're trying to resolve the best we can for the people of West Virginia.
Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Senator Patricia Rucker. I represent the 16th District, and I will just speak very briefly, but just to give you guys a reflection of the diversity of views. You know, I firmly believe that individuals have the choice to make their decisions over their medical care, and that no one should be coerced or pushed to do something that they do not want to do or do not feel is good for them. We've been working, trying to find a way forward in this very difficult situation, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be in the position where I can be representing those of you who feel that way in this conversation. I just want to say real quickly, because the vast majority of the emails and calls that we're getting are from healthcare workers in our state. I want to thank them. They worked tirelessly. We definitely owe them a debt of gratitude. They are heroes. They continue to be heroes. We really could never repay everything that they have done. So please know that no one wants you to lose your job. We need you here in West Virginia. We need you to take care of us, and we're thankful for everything you have done. And I really hope that what's going to end up happening is that every single one of these healthcare workers and everyone in West Virginia is treated with respect and honored for the decisions that they make. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to make a comment before we go to questions? Sure.
Senator David Stover, most people call me Bugs. I'm from Wyoming County, that's the 9th Senatorial District. I'd like to comment just for a bit on what's going on with the executive order from President Biden. In my opinion, we probably ought to do the things he said, but that's not the only thing we have to think about. Yeah, my position is go get vaccinated. Please do it. I did mine as soon as I could. But the other point is this. Does the president or any of us in government have the right to tell people to interfere in private business and private citizens and tell them those kinds of things, order them? Well, the beauty of our system here in America and in West Virginia is that he did do that. Companies will react to that, and I guarantee the other branch of government will get involved. Someone will sue if they disagree enough about his order. In my opinion, they should sue, but that's up to those individuals. So along with the press and citizens now who are all over social media and texting all of us constantly, this is going to work out. I don't know how yet, but it will, and we're all here working together. Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing that to occur. Thank you all.
Questions?
Vaccination rate here is almost 52%. Whatever we're doing now is working somewhat, but definitely not fast enough. Should it be the focus of state government to strip public health officials of whatever sticks that they have now? Because asking people to do it doesn't seem to be.
Well, I don't know where we've stripped public health officials of doing anything. Fact of the matter is, though, they're unelected bodies. They are able to create emergency rules, and then within 30 days, they need to have them approved by a county commission, where they're voted up, down, or modified. Okay, now the reason for that is they're unelected body, in effect, creating law. And that goes against every principle that this country's founded on. That has been changed by this legislature this year and signed by the governor. So we want the health departments to be able to do their jobs. And they are doing their jobs. But nothing's been taken away from them. Anybody want to disagree with that comment? So next. I don't even understand your question. Speak clearer.
Okay. You're talking about having a special session to push back, if you could, if you have a consensus, to push back against the Biden mandate, which you may be able to do through the courts anyhow. But would that special session strip ability of, say, the governor to impose a mask mandate if he wanted to? He hasn't done that, but we don't know what's ahead. We could have 5,000 people dead here by December.
We're creating legislation right now dealing with the issue before us. It's not about taking powers away from anyone, and we can't do anything legislatively other than a resolution to push back on the federal government. Okay? That's pretty simple. We're here looking at solving the problems that are before us today. And the funny part about it is that we have been anticipating and trying to be prepared and modifying where we've been in the past to where we're at in the future to be able to identify with it. I spoke last night, and I talked about not looking out past the hood of your car, but to look way down the street and be able to manage things. That's the way this government operates today for the people of West Virginia. We're looking out into the future, trying to anticipate and be prepared to have the appropriate responses. But ultimately, dealing with the federal government, this press conference in itself is designed to send a message to the federal government that we've had enough of the mandates. That's wrong. And then we're asking the governor and the AG to use whatever tools they have at their disposal to push back on the federal mandates, because coercing businesses and individuals with taking back the Medicaid, Medicare, the reimbursements for the hospitals because they're not being forced to do because of the dollar signs is wrong.
A number of you have specifically referred to negotiations. Is that negotiations to get to the 3/5 to be able to call yourselves in the
you want to take it?
Sure. So the negotiations have been around what issues that we would come to with at least 18 votes on actions around any kind of vaccine policy. There's a lot of different things to look at there. Should there be a vaccine passport? Should it be completely the individual's choice, whether or not down to philosophical, whether or not they can get the vaccine in any sort of mandate situation? Should an employer be able to mandate a vaccine? There's a lot of those things, and if they do mandate a vaccine, what level of study should it have to go through? The current vaccine hasn't been through its phase 3 trials, so it was rushed through, and really there's parts of the vaccine that, as Pfizer did it, that are not FDA approved, and they only approved the ones manufactured going forward, even though the stockpiles are what everybody's getting. So this vaccine has not gone through regular FDA approval. That we, take OxyContin. How many West Virginians today are still dying because of an FDA-approved drug that took years to get approved? So there's a lot of debate that happens around those issues. The point of contention in the negotiations is where can we get to 18 votes on an effective policy that does something to protect the freedoms and safety and that balance for the people of West Virginia.
President Blair, I want to turn back to you just real quick. You talked a little bit about task force, talking about trying to push for treatments. Is this a new task force? Is this part of the joint interagency task force that has already been working? Can you elaborate on that?
That's a good question, because I called Brian down to the governor's office before we had this press conference. And I give credit, let's get credit where it belongs. About a month ago, in that ballpark, we got to looking at the infusion therapy, and we could see the numbers kicking up. And so we reached out to the governor's office, but it was Senator Tarr's idea on this. And so just like in the past, getting the vaccines out, we've been trying to get ahead of the curve so that we can actually dispense out and manage the situations in a productive, efficient manner so that it looks like we're doing a good job. And so they've been working on this. Some of this infusion therapy, whatever what it's called, he knows the term for it. Some of it was shipped down to Kentucky, but a lot of it is in the hospitals. What we're talking about doing is getting it out of the hospitals, some of it, and getting it so that if you're at a testing area and you test positive for COVID, within 24 hours, you can actually get that therapy along with the steroids to go along with it. And then that reduces your chance of going to the hospital by 60%. It's actually a little higher than that. When we've got all the other issues going on at the hospitals, in a matter of 10 days, once we implement that and get it all in place, and it's probably going to be done with the Guard. I don't know that. They're working out the details on it, but we're just 3 or 4 days away, is my understanding, from being able to implement that and then take some of the demand off our hospitals. So, and again, we're anticipating, but we're still, when we get something nailed down, then the federal government sticks their nose into it and changes the game on a lot of this. And it's getting very old. It makes it hard to manage the state's health in this situation if the rules of the game continues to be changed, or worse yet, the rug is pulled out from underneath of us. Mark.
Does the state have jurisdiction over this, or is this an FDA issue, or are you just simply going to pass a resolution saying we want these therapies? And I'd like to hear Dr. Takubo comment talk about their efficacy and where they are.
Yeah, we'll get him up here and talk about that therapy, because it's very interesting, and the people of West Virginia need to know about that. And it's a combination of all the above. This is what takes us so long on managing it, is because you've got the federal government controlling supply chains of the medications. Then you got how we run things normally in the state and how to administer it. And then there's times where we've been bringing in the Guard to help expedite and get the job done. And again, I have to applaud the people that I've seen working on this. And I'm not just the members behind me, but down in the governor's office, they are working nonstop and with all the different entities, trying to find the right path forward to be able to provide the services for this issue. And frankly, in the situation that we're in, I think they're doing one hell of a job. Now, Tom, come up and talk about the infusion therapy.
Mark, your specific question was regarding Regeneron. So Regeneron is a monoclonal antibody. So first, let me start off by saying we've got another therapy that is even more effective. In fact, it's 99.9% effective in preventing you from having death, and that's the vaccine. But if you do get COVID infection and you do start becoming symptomatic from COVID infection, you need to get to your healthcare provider, because there are therapies that can help. It can not only decrease your symptoms to make you feel better quicker, but it can decrease the risk of hospitalization and death. One of those is a steroid. That's fairly cheap and inexpensive. Most people can get. Another one is a medication, monoclonal antibody called Regeneron. And what that does essentially gives synthetically made antibodies to your system to help you win the fight. So when you get the COVID infection, it starts replicating in your body, and from that point on, it's really just a race. Your body's immune system, compared to the rapid rate of the production of the virus in your body, and once your body wins the race, you get better. And so that therapy can help. I don't know of that. I know that there are centers across the state that have been set up. Not everyone knows about it, but to my understanding, most places it's pretty readily available. I know President Blair is...
They may be referring to the criteria. It's
Okay.
possible that they may be referring, there is a criteria for receiving the Regeneron. It's not just anyone who wants it or anyone who asks it. WV Medicine has set up a criteria based on what the federal regulations were, and you do have to meet that criteria.
So there's what's called emergency use authorization. So when the FDA approved that, it's based upon criteria on studies that shows the benefit versus non-benefit. And so you have to be within 10 days of symptoms. There's some other health conditions that may play into a part of that. And that's why you really should seek your medical provider to see if you're a candidate for the therapy or not. Yeah. No, not at all. So the best thing is not to get infected at all, right? Social distance, keep yourself safe, keep yourself vaccinated, don't get the infection in the first place. That's first and foremost. But if you do get the infection, what we don't want to see you do is become critically ill from that. And so therapies in place to kind of turn that around, that's one of those therapies. Now, this has been around for a while. If you guys remember President Trump when he was COVID infected and he goes to Bethesda and next day he says, wow, they gave me this stuff and made me feel great. That's what he was referring to. And patients will tell you that. They usually feel much better after getting that. And again, it hopefully turns the course so they don't land in the hospital.
You're going to have to go louder for me because I'm hard of hearing. Well, I personally, I've had the vaccine, but I don't feel the government should be dictating to anybody of a personal choice on that, especially for a vaccine. And again, I have no problems with it, but there are other people that have health issues that the vaccine may come into play, religious issues that can come into play on that, and you got to be able to respect a person and a family's the right decision to make. This is what we've been dealing with here. And again, I would encourage people to get the vaccine, but that is me. I am not about to tell that gentleman, you, to get the vaccine or mandate it, is what I'm getting at. That's not the role of government on this aspect. This is how we end up, though, with overflowing hospitals, where it comes right back to what I was talking about in the beginning. That you can't take care of an automobile accident. You'll have problems with somebody with a heart attack, the normal stuff that you're dealing with in hospital. So, look at the situation that we've got, and that therapy, and as you were talking about that there's a ready supply of that in the state of West Virginia that we're going to be able to utilize to help cut the caseload and reduce the ICU beds in this state, and let people still have the freedom to make their own decisions.
Is it's your position that the government doesn't have the authority to force somebody to do that, but are you all in any kind of agreement whether or not a business has the right to force somebody to do that?
I wish I could hear you.
Your consensus is the government doesn't have the right to force somebody to take the shot, but have you all reached any agreement as to whether or not a business does, or should a business be entitled to require that as a condition?
No. Next question.
Can I speak for a second?
Sure.
Just to your question, and to your question personally, I'm not speaking, I'm sorry, Senator Mike Hazinger, Wood County. There are several of us in the caucus that believe that in this particular issue that the government or private business doesn't have a right to tell an individual, an employee, to put a vaccine in their body that this many people are fearful of, and that is this new and that has caused so many problems. The emails that we're getting are from nurses. These are not stupid people. These are intelligent people who are afraid to take the vaccine. Hundreds of them. We had a rally in Wood County that was a Vax Freedom rally. We had 250 people show up on fairly short notice. Bridgeport, they had 200-300 people show up on fairly short notice. These are people that are afraid of this vaccine, and in my strong opinion, no employer has the right to tell their employee that they have to take this vaccine. So there are those of us in the caucus that have that position, and with all due respect to Mr. President here, he has to hurt all of us, but there are some of us that feel very strongly about that issue. Thank you. Well, tell me if there.
Hold up for 1 second, though. The question from him was whether the caucus had taken a position, and the answer was no. So just so that everybody understands, the caucus does not have a position on it at this point in time, and we are working our way towards one.
If I may, because you asked a question about the precedent of employers, I do want to point out that we do currently limit employers from discrimination. They cannot fire employees for basis of race, gender, and other categories. We also have regulations that are in place for employers that they must follow for safety and also in people's individual rights. It's not totally unheard of. Having said that, as it's clear, we're not all on the same page. So this is part of the legislative process, and it's part of being in a representative republic. So we are all elected, and we all represent different parts of the segment of the population, and there's a lot of disagreement out there currently regarding this.
I just one quick remark in terms of precedent. There's also been no precedent in terms of a vaccine coming out this quickly without a history of it also. So that precedent has not been established either.
Yeah, great. Any other questions?
Just a clarification, Mr. President. Is it 2/3 of the House and Senate to call in a special session, or is it 3/5?
It's 3/5 of 60 House members have to call themselves in, and 21 senators. And
Math
I'm not going to tell you that. We work together as a team, and I'm not hanging not one member out for anything on questions like that. We're done. Thank you.